The coffee mug was still warm when she said it, like the words had been waiting for the right temperature to land. Not hot, not cold, just lukewarm honesty, served in silence. She didn't look at me. She just stirred her oat milk and said it like she was canceling a dentist appointment. Let's take a break. The room didn't react, but my bones did. She didn't mean a break like a pause. She meant a break like a snap. You know the kind of moment where something in you shuts off so quietly, you almost miss it? That was the moment for me. A single second with no loud fight, no flying plates, no slammed doors. Just the slow realization that the person sitting 3 feet away had already left months ago. I didn't ask her why. I didn't beg. I didn't even finish my drink. I just stood up, grabbed my phone and keys, and walked out. Not like in movies, where it's raining, and there's music playing, and the protagonist cries on the sidewalk. No, I walked out into a painfully bright morning with lawn sprinklers clicking away like they were mocking me. The world didn't care. The birds still chirped. The neighbor still waved. The Amazon guy still dropped off a package labeled for her. Of course it was for her. That's the funny part. When someone breaks your heart quietly, life doesn't pause to give you a montage. You still get junk mail. You still step in puddles. You still open the fridge hoping there's something in there that doesn't remind you of them. I drove with no destination. Windows down. No music. Just the sound of the wind pretending to help. And for some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about her drawer. Yeah, that drawer. The one next to the bed she never let me open. Girl stuff, she said. Private. I respected that. Trusted her. Like an idiot. But that drawer haunted me more than the breakup. Because suddenly, I needed to know what was in it. So yeah, I went back. Not because I missed her, but because I couldn't take not knowing. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a journal. Maybe some half-written poems. Maybe, if I'm honest, a bottle of perfume and a few tangled hair ties. Something normal. Something boring. Something that would make me feel like a paranoid idiot for even coming back. But what I found in that drawer changed the way I saw her forever. It wasn't locked. Never was. That was her genius. She made the drawer off limits so confidently that I never questioned it. And yet inside, it was a carefully curated shrine. Not of us. Not of memories. But of secrets. Receipts. Train tickets. Hotel keycards. Notebooks with initials I didn't recognize. And at the bottom, a phone. Not hers. One I had never seen. Cheap. Old. A burner. I didn't even know she knew how to be this calculated. I stood there for a while. In that room we used to sleep in. Her pillow still had a faint dent in it. The duvet was folded with surgical precision. No emotion. No warmth. Just order. I powered on the burner phone, and it came to life without a password. Either she trusted that drawer more than she should have, or she thought I'd never find the courage to open it. There were texts. Dozens. But none from me. There were photos. None of them showed faces. Just hotel rooms. Meals for two. A shot of her legs in high heels I'd never seen her wear. A hand on her thigh that wasn't mine. I didn't feel anger. Not immediately. Just this cold, hollow sense of confirmation. Like I'd already suspected the truth, but needed the universe to slap me with it anyway. I didn't call her. I didn't scream. I just put the phone back, closed the drawer, and sat down on the bed like a guest in someone else's home. It hit me that everything in this room was arranged to erase me. Not in a dramatic way, but in a clean, minimalist, Marie Kondo kind of way. My hoodie? Gone. My shaving cream? Replaced with hers. Even the framed photos had changed. A beach photo I remembered was replaced with a vague abstract print. She had been preparing for my absence. And I had been sitting in denial, defending her to my friends, telling them she just needed time. I left the house quietly. Again. But this time I didn't take my keys. I left them on the hallway table, next to the smiling photo of us that, in hindsight, felt like a lie printed in color. Later that night, she texted me again. Hope you're okay. I'm still figuring things out. She had no idea I had been there, that I'd seen behind the curtain, that the naive, fumbling version of me, the one who would have waited around like a dog by the door, was dead. That was the night I realized she didn't want space. She wanted distance without guilt. She wanted a clean emotional exit where I was the one who walked away. So she could tell her friends I left. So she could be the one to say he gave up. But I didn't give up. She cashed out. And I was done being the only one holding the receipt. I didn't respond to her message. Not right away. I let her sit in the illusion that I was still out there somewhere, licking my wounds. probably crying into a hoodie that still smelled like her. Let her think I was clueless, that I hadn't touched the drawer, that I hadn't opened Pandora's cheap prepaid phone. I spent the next few days back at Reed's apartment, pretending to be asleep most of the time just so I didn't have to answer his questions. He was trying to help, I know that, but every time he asked, "Do you think she'll come back?" I wanted to scream, not because I didn't have an answer, but because deep down, I knew she would. That was the worst part. She would come back the moment things with him went wrong, and I'd be plan B. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that faceless hand on her thigh. The way she had posed it for the camera, her body language casual, almost smug. Like she wanted to remember what it felt like to betray someone who still brought her coffee in the mornings. I'd rewatch those moments in my head on loop, like some deranged director editing a horror movie with no music. By day 4, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Anger that didn't come with guilt. I had always been the apologizer in our relationship. The peacekeeper. The one who'd say sorry first, even when I wasn't sure what I did wrong. But now, that instinct was gone. Burnout. Like something inside me had finally short-circuited. So I answered her. Just 5 words. "I think you're right." She replied 5 minutes later, as if she'd been waiting. "Right about the break?" I didn't text back. I let the silence do the talking. And I could tell it rattled her because the next morning, she called. I didn't answer. Then she texted again, this time with a voice note. Her voice, usually confident and clear, sounded shaky, uncertain. "Hey, just wanted to check in. You've been quiet. I didn't mean to push you away. I needed to breathe. I hope you're okay. Can we maybe talk soon?" I played the message twice, just to listen to her voice tremble near the end. That was new. That wasn't the tone of someone who was winning the breakup. That was the sound of someone who realized their backup plan wasn't as secure as they thought. So I did what I shouldn't have. I used her burner phone, the one she probably thought I never found. It had no passcode, just a fingerprint unlock, hers. But there was a synced cloud backup, amateurs, really, and I was able to export the old texts into a document and read them on my laptop. I didn't want to. I really didn't. But it was like walking past a house fire and trying not to look. The messages went back 6 months. Not 1, not 2, 6. That meant when she kissed me on New Year's Eve and said, "This is our year." She had already been texting him. He was saved under a fake name. Trina, work Jim. Cute. I guess I never questioned why her female coworker had such a deep voice on speakerphone once. She'd laughed it off. She's got a cold. Lies. So many lies. The messages weren't even emotional at first. Just logistics. Same place as last time. He's working late. I can sneak out around 8. Bring wine. Red. You know the one. But then they turned personal. Sickeningly sweet. I wish falling asleep next to you was real. He's nice, but he doesn't see me. Sometimes I fantasize about just running away with you. And then, the photo. Not the one I found earlier. This one was her. Fully visible. Sitting in a hotel bed with a smirk I had never seen her give me in 6 years of marriage. She looked young in that shot. Reborn. Like she had shed the life we built and was basking in the glow of betrayal. And still, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. Because hate would have meant I still cared enough to feel something clean. What I felt was dirtier. Like pity, but poisoned. Like I wanted her to fall apart. Not because I was hurt, but because she had no idea what she'd just thrown away. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to post about it on social media. I wasn't going to beg for closure. I was going to make her think I was still exactly the man she left. Blind. Soft. Replaceable. Until she came crawling back. And found someone else entirely. A week passed. I didn't contact her again. Not even to provoke. I figured silence would say everything better than words ever could. That's the thing about people like her. They're not afraid of yelling or confrontation. What they truly fear is indifference. The terrifying echo of being ignored by someone who once worshipped them. I watched her slowly unravel from a distance. Not literally. I wasn't stalking her. But social media tells more truth than people realize, especially when they're trying not to say anything. She started posting neutral things. A picture of a book by a window. A photo of her coffee with no caption. A blurry shot of the sunrise with a vague quote about healing. That's when I knew the guy, the one she built her secret second life around, wasn't working out. Maybe he got what he wanted and left. Maybe he realized she wasn't as available as she'd promised. Or maybe he was just bored. Guys like that don't chase women who break down. They chase the thrill of being the escape. The second she became a real person with real expectations, the illusion cracked. And I knew that crack, because I used to be the guy she leaned on. I was the one who used to make her morning smoothies, take photos of her while she laughed, rub her shoulders when she fell asleep at her desk. I gave her home, and she gave me an exit wound. It wasn't long before she reached out again. This time, she sent a photo. It was the mug I used every morning. Ceramic, chipped on one side. Blue with a faded constellation design. I bought it at a roadside gas station on the way home from our first trip together. I remember she used to call it your old man cup. Now, it sat on our kitchen counter with the same spoon I always used. She didn't write anything with the photo, just sent it, like it was some symbol of peace, of nostalgia, of familiarity. But it just made me angry. Not furious. Not screaming, fist through the wall angry. I mean that quiet, aching anger that curls in your stomach and makes you want to punch a wall, but you know you won't because it's her wall, and you don't live there anymore. I didn't reply. I refused to be baited. I think that's when it really hit her, when the vacuum of my absence finally started to suffocate her. 2 days later, I get a call. I don't answer. She tries again. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the message. Hey, can you call me? It's not about us. I really need to talk. That line. Not about us. Classic manipulation. Designed to sound low pressure. To disarm me. But we both knew what it was. She was panicking. She wanted to hear my voice. She wanted to know if there was still something left to salvage. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went back to the house. Not to forgive her. Not to plead. I just wanted to see what the damage looked like in person. Like walking through a building you once lived in, long after it caught fire. I timed it for when I knew she'd be at work. I still had access to the security camera app. She never changed the password. Another detail she missed. Maybe she didn't think she'd need to. When I walked inside, it hit me how cold the place felt. The warmth was gone. The bookshelves we built together had been rearranged. The little Polaroids of us she used to keep on the fridge, replaced with aesthetic recipe cards and grocery lists. I checked the bedroom. My side of the closet was empty. Fine. But on her side, stuffed in the corner behind her coats, was something unexpected. One of my old t-shirts. Not folded. Just crumpled. Like she'd slept in it and hid it before leaving for work. That's when I looked at the mirror. I don't mean just looked. I really saw it. She had written something in the fog, probably from a recent shower. Barely visible. But there if you tilted your head just right. Why did I do this? 7 words. That's all. Not even a question mark. But it was enough to freeze me in place. She was breaking. Quietly. Behind her curated Instagram posts and the fake smiles at work, she was coming undone. And that gave me power I never wanted but desperately needed. Because for the first time in this entire mess, I realized she was haunted by the version of me that used to love her unconditionally. She was being haunted by the ghost of who I used to be. And I wasn't going to help her exorcise it. Not now. Not ever. I hadn't told her where I was staying. That's what made it worse. Reed's apartment isn't listed under my name. I'd even used a different delivery app account to get groceries sent there. No shared playlists. No geotagged posts. I erased my trail on purpose. So when she knocked, physically knocked, on his door 3 weeks after the break, I knew she was slipping. Reed was the one who opened it, still wearing his faded high school wrestling hoodie. He looked at her like she was a ghost from a canceled season of a show he didn't miss. She here to cry or confess? He muttered over his shoulder as I stood frozen in the kitchen. She hadn't changed much, but her expression had. The sharp, decisive woman who had confidently told me she needed space now looked like she'd lost the script. Eyes puffy, skin pale under a layer of foundation, lips trembling like they weren't sure what shape to form. For a second, I felt the tiniest flicker of compassion. Then I remembered the texts. The hotel receipts. The drawer. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't move. Just stared. She stood awkwardly in the doorway, like she wasn't sure if she was still allowed in. That was new. She used to walk into any room like she owned the floor. Now she looked like a guest in the house of her own consequences. Reed raised an eyebrow. You want me to leave? No, I said, louder than necessary. She flinched. She tried to smile. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I stayed silent. She took that as an invitation and stepped inside, her eyes flicking across the worn couch, the sink full of takeout containers, the windows taped from when Reed had tried and failed to fix a draft. "This is where you've been staying? Does it matter?" I asked. "I mean, I didn't expect." "Exactly. You didn't expect anything. That's the problem." She bit her lip and sat down on the edge of the couch, careful not to disturb the mess. That, too, was unfamiliar. The woman who used to scold me for leaving crumbs on the kitchen counter was now gently moving aside a half-empty bag of Doritos to make space. "Humbling, I guess. I made a mistake," she said finally. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so lazy, so tragically underwhelming. "Which one?" I asked. "The lie? The burner phone? The 6 months of acting like I was a ghost in my own house? Or was it the part where you took a wrecking ball to our marriage and called it space?" She looked down at her hands, ashamed, maybe, or just rehearsing her next line. "I thought it was just physical," she said, voice shaking. "At first, I didn't think I was emotionally leaving, but I was. And I'm sorry. I don't even know who that person was. I thought I was chasing something exciting, but—" "Stop." She froze. "I don't want the redemption arc," I said. "You had the whole script, Nora. The sympathetic exit. The morally gray journey. You figured I'd spiral, then you'd come back and we'd rebuild, stronger, with boundaries and therapy and all that crap. But here's the twist you didn't expect. I don't want to rebuild. I don't even want revenge." She looked up, confused. "Then what do you want?" "I want you to sit in it. Really sit in it. The silence. The emptiness. The bed that's too cold on one side. The holidays you have to explain to your family. The coffee that never tastes the same when you make it alone." Tears were starting to form now, and for the first time, I didn't look away. I wanted her to cry, not because I enjoyed her pain, but because I needed proof that she still had something human left under all that polished detachment. "You don't have to forgive me," she whispered, "but I came here to tell you that I miss you. Not out of habit, not because it's convenient, but because I was wrong. I thought you were safe, predictable. I didn't realize you were the thing holding me together until I lost you." The room went still. Reed had quietly slipped out to the balcony, bless him, maybe to avoid the awkwardness, or maybe to give me space. Either way, I felt the weight of her words pressing against my chest like a slow exhale in winter. But I didn't move. Because here's the truth, she didn't miss me. She missed the version of herself that felt loved when she was with me. She missed the mirror I held up that made her feel worthy. And I wasn't holding that mirror anymore. "I'm not the man you left, Nora," I said softly. "And you're not the woman I married. So let's not pretend this is something we can tape back together." She looked like she wanted to scream or collapse or apologize again. Maybe all three. But instead, she stood up, nodded slowly, and walked to the door. Just before she opened it, she turned back and said, "He didn't choose me, you know. He said I was too complicated." I looked her dead in the eye. I could have told him that. The door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time since this whole thing began, I breathed without pain. After she left Reed's place, I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel victorious or cleansed or stronger than before. I just sat there staring at the closed door, wondering what version of me she thought she had come to find. Maybe she expected a man shattered but soft, broken but still eager to piece things back together if she just said the right words. Maybe she thought I'd be touched by her vulnerability. But that guy, the one who used to wait for her to come home when she was working late, the one who used to pause shows mid-episode so she wouldn't miss anything, he was long gone. I didn't feel like a better man. I didn't feel like a man at all, honestly. I felt like some leftover echo of someone I used to be. A hollow recording on loop, trying to remember what normal sounded like. That night, I went out for a walk. Not to clear my head, that's the cliché. I just couldn't stand being in that room anymore, surrounded by the smell of instant noodles and Reed's weird incense sticks that smelled like burnt bark. The streets were quiet. Cold wind. Dim streetlights. Every passing car felt like a question I didn't have an answer to. I passed a coffee shop we used to go to. The one where she cried in front of me the day her mom got diagnosed. The one where I had held her hand under the table and told her it would all be okay, even though it wasn't. It was closed now, renovations, according to the sign taped to the door. I stood there staring at the dark windows, realizing it wasn't just us that had collapsed. It was the places, the rituals, the anchors. Everything had cracked with us. And yet, she thought coming back would fix it. I got home to a new message on my phone. Not from her. This one was from her sister. She told me everything. I'm not taking sides, but I think she's really hurting. I stared at it for a long time. The phrase "not taking sides" echoed in my head. Everyone loves to stay neutral when the damage isn't done to them. Everyone wants to be Switzerland when they're not the one sweeping up the glass. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, out of exhaustion. I had spent so long managing everyone else's feelings about my pain that I didn't realize I'd been hemorrhaging quietly the whole time. That week, I started doing something strange. Every morning, I'd wake up early, earlier than I ever did when I was with her, and go sit in this rundown diner a few blocks away. It was a nothing place. Greasy menu, cracked vinyl booths, coffee that tasted like it came from a hospital vending machine. But it was quiet. No one there knew me. No one asked how I was doing. I didn't have to pretend. I'd just sit, drink bad coffee, and write. Not a journal. I didn't write poetry or breakup letters. I wrote facts, one-liners, truths I had avoided while I was married. Stuff like, she made me feel guilty for needing affection. I convinced myself her coldness was a personality trait, not a warning sign. I stopped talking about my dreams because she rolled her eyes every time I did. She never actually asked if I was happy. By the end of the week, I had filled 6 pages. And that was the first time I felt something close to clarity. Because that list, ugly, unpolished, blunt, was the first thing I'd created that she would never get to control, never get to edit or interpret. It was mine. A few days later, I ran into someone unexpected. Her ex. Before me. His name was Neil. We'd met once, briefly, at a mutual friend's party years ago. Back then, he seemed like the stereotypical jealous ex hanging around the edges of her life. She always made him sound unstable, obsessive, and dramatic. I believed her. But when I saw him that day at the pharmacy, he didn't look unstable. He looked relieved, free. We locked eyes awkwardly. I debated walking the other way. But he nodded, like he'd been expecting this moment for years. She finally let you go too, huh? He said, casual but heavy. I didn't answer, because suddenly, I didn't have to. He already knew. I spent a long time thinking I was the problem, he added. She's good at that. Making you feel like the crazy one. Like everything's your fault for not being more entertaining, or masculine, or mysterious. Whatever she's chasing that month. We stood there in silence. 2 ghosts who used to orbit the same black hole. She'll come back again, he said eventually. They always do. I know, I replied. And that's what scared me the most. I couldn't sleep the night after I saw Neil. I lay there in Reed's 2 small guest bed, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional thud of footsteps from the apartment above. The city doesn't sleep, but I used to. I used to sleep deeply, next to her, feeling like whatever else was wrong with the world, us, was safe. Now I couldn't tell if what we had was safety or sedation. It's a strange thing when the heartbreak quiets down just enough for your memory to get honest. I started playing scenes back in my head like a private film screening, but without the romantic filters. Just raw footage. And what I saw made my stomach turn. So much of our relationship wasn't about love. It was about performance. About being who I thought she needed. Saying the right things. Playing the reliable, sensitive, accommodating partner. Her friends loved me because I knew how to be quiet in the right moments. How to play second to her spotlight. How to shrink just enough to keep things calm. But was that love? Or was that fear? I remember our second year together, when I got offered a job in another city. A dream opportunity. Great pay. Real creative freedom. And I turned it down, not after a discussion, but after one look from her. She didn't yell. Didn't argue. Just made it clear, silently, that her roots mattered more than my wings. And I folded. Back then, I called it compromise. Now, I call it something closer to surrender. I kept thinking back to one night, our 4th anniversary. We were at a restaurant she chose, surrounded by people she wanted to impress. The kind of place with $18 cocktails and waiters who corrected your pronunciation. I had written her a letter. Not a card. A full letter. 3 pages. Honest. Personal. Real. She opened it, skimmed it, smiled politely, and tucked it into her purse without reading it aloud. I'll read it later, she said. I'm almost certain she never did. And the worst part? I didn't say a word. I just nodded and told myself it was fine. That she showed love differently. That I couldn't expect people to respond to me the way I responded to them. But now I wonder, was I even in love with her? Or was I just addicted to the idea that someone like her chose someone like me? The more I pulled that thread, the more the entire sweater unraveled. I started thinking about how I used to walk on eggshells around her moods. How I'd rehearse casual sentences in my head just to avoid triggering some passive-aggressive spiral. How I'd delay sharing good news if I sensed she was in a bad place emotionally, because I didn't want to outshine her day. That's not partnership. That's damage control. The night before she asked for the break, she had fallen asleep on the couch, and I had watched her for a long time. I didn't feel warmth. I felt distance, like I was looking at someone I used to know. Her mouth slightly open, arm hanging off the edge, the TV still playing in the background. There was something in that moment, something final, that I couldn't name at the time. But I feel it now. I had already lost her. No, worse. I had already lost myself. And that's what I couldn't forgive her for. Not the cheating. Not the lies. Not even the manipulation. I couldn't forgive her for making me forget who I was in the first place. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped writing. I stopped sketching. I stopped staying up late watching dumb sci-fi movies and laughing at my own bad impressions. I stopped calling my dad. I stopped playing guitar. I stopped being. Also, I could be her safe space, her calm, her support system. But when I needed support, she outsourced it to another man. The truth hit me like a whisper through a megaphone. I didn't miss her. I missed who I thought I had to become in order to keep her. And now, finally, I was free of both. The next morning, I booked a solo trip. Nothing fancy, just a cabin upstate. No Wi-Fi, no reception, no noise. I told Reed I needed to get out for a bit. He didn't ask questions, just clapped me on the back and told me to take beer. And for the first time in months, as I packed my bag and shut the apartment door behind me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not closure, not peace, but self. The first thing I noticed when I got back from the cabin wasn't that I had no signal for 3 days. It wasn't the stack of unread texts or the cold silence of Reed's apartment. It was something subtler, quieter, almost impossible to explain. I didn't feel like I owed anyone anything anymore. Not an explanation. Not a performance. Not an apology for being me. The cabin had been still, quiet in a way cities forget how to be. I spent those 3 days reading actual paper books. I made a fire that barely lasted an hour. I fell asleep on the floor and woke up to birds instead of sirens. No dramatic moments. No tears. Just space. Not the kind she asked for when she wanted to push me away, but space I chose for myself, finally, without asking permission. When I turned my phone back on, I expected chaos. Maybe another string of texts from her. Maybe her sister. Or maybe silence, which I'd started to understand wasn't always a punishment. It was sometimes a blessing. But what I found was a single message. One new voicemail. No missed calls. Just that. It was from her. I waited an hour before listening. I made coffee, took a shower, changed into a clean t-shirt. I wasn't stalling out of fear. I just wanted to prove something to myself, that her voice no longer had the power to control the rhythm of my day. Then I hit play. Hey, I don't know if you'll ever listen to this. Honestly, I'm not even sure why I'm leaving it. I wanted to say thank you. Not for taking me back. I know you won't. But for not letting me pretend. You saw through it. Through me, and you didn't hand me the easy way out. And you didn't destroy me either. You just let me see myself. That's more mercy than I deserved. There was a long pause. I thought the message had ended. I hope, wherever you are, you're doing something for you. Something that doesn't involve carrying someone else's weight. I hope you found something light. You always carried so much more than you admitted. Click. That was it. No, I love you. No, I miss you. Just honesty. And it didn't hurt. Not like it used to. It didn't send me spiraling. It didn't make me question anything. It just felt like what it was, someone closing their chapter, and giving me permission to close mine. The next few weeks passed in slow waves. I moved out of Reed's place and into a small one-bedroom apartment not far from the lake. The walls are thin and the heating's unreliable, but it's mine. I filled the bookshelf with novels I always said I'd read. I bought cheap canvases and started painting again. Badly. Sloppily, joyfully. I even found a little community garden nearby where I planted cherry tomatoes that I will absolutely forget to water. And one afternoon, while sketching alone in the park, someone sat down next to me. Her name was Elsie. She asked if I was drawing the tree or just pretending to look busy. I laughed for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. A real laugh. The kind that doesn't ask for anything in return. We talked. Just talked. No fireworks. No sparks flying. Just two strangers sharing a bench and an hour of sun. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to perform, to impress, to protect. I was just Oliver, a man with a pencil, a bruised heart, and a story he finally survived. So yeah, this isn't a story about revenge, or about getting her back, or becoming rich and cold and unbothered. It's just a story about losing someone and finally finding yourself in the empty space they left behind. And if you're listening, sitting in that space yourself, wondering if you'll ever feel normal again, I hope you do what I did. I hope you stop chasing the past. And I hope you let the future find you, quietly, gently, without apology.